Hello, Hainted Loves. Welcome to Homespun Haint's Bonus Edition. I am Becky.
I'm Diana.
I love your hoodie. You look like you're about to step out of a nightmare.
Hoods are cool. I was thinking about pulling it all the way down over my eyes so that you could only see my teeth.
We're going to talk about nightmares today because if you listened to our episode on Monday, it was called, Will You Share Your Nightmares? And the subject came up, can horror movies cause nightmares?
Can they?
Yes, absolutely. Without question. You may not remember your dreams or your nightmares, but horror movies can cause nightmares. In fact, anything that you find stressful or disturbing or that questions your logic circuits can cause a nightmare.
A lot of things question my logic circuits.
I bet you have a lot of nightmares.
A lot. Can you process during a nightmare? Can you process after a nightmare?
Yeah, well, let's talk about it. So, what causes a nightmare? Diana, you do a lot of dream interpretation. I'm sure you have some research and opinions on this. What causes a nightmare?
Well, in my completely professional and educated opinion, a nightmare is your stress response to the day before.
Exactly.
So any dream is talking to you from your subconscious. It's a message from your subconscious saying, hey, here's what's important about what's happened in the last 48 hours of your waking life. Maybe you should take some of this symbolism and reflect on it so that you can have a more holistic understanding of what we here in your subconscious department are feeling and thinking when you're doing your day-to-day conscious life stuff. But the messages from the subconscious get coded in the language of pictures and symbolism as opposed to direct communication. That's just how the subconscious do. So basically we're stuck trying to interpret these symbols and pictures from our subconscious, whereas our conscious mind may be a little too literal to be able to take it. So when the subconscious feels stressed out, it's going to give you a big, scary image to try and break through and say, do you see how important this is? Mm-hmm. And the conscious mind goes, oh God, it's scary. It's scary. I can't handle it. And then you wake up and you go back into conscious mind mode and you say your nightmare aloud. And it has less impact as soon as you put it into the consciousness of language.
This is actually part of how you can avoid having nightmares. Let's talk through it. So you mentioned stress, and that is a huge reason we have nightmares. And what can horror movies cause?
Anxiety, fear, stress, tension, horror.
Those very strong emotions, they can stress out your subconscious.
That's kind of the point.
Exactly. You have a surge of all of these emotions. But it's also important to remember that when you have really, really strong stressful emotions, you also have really strong other emotions too. So if you take the time to kind of lean into those emotions that the horror movie possesses, it can help you kind of sort things out before you go to sleep. Because if you don't sort it out consciously and sort out why you're feeling what you're feeling and why you're scared of what you saw and work to reduce that stress, guess what your subconscious is going to do?
So stressful. I feel like you've just hit on the essence of being goth, is the willingness and actual almost fetishization.
Say it again.
The almost I can't say it again.
Fetishization.
The almost fetishization of embracing and leaning into these negative emotions, or what are termed by society to be negative emotions of fear and despair and horror.
You're absolutely right. We goth people, we love to kind of embrace our dark side. But maybe this makes us actually a little more well-rounded.
I think so. It's disturbing talking to people who can't handle talking about negative emotions, like not even talking about them, let alone experiencing them.
I know. Ooh, you just did a weird thing with your video.
I know. My image just showed that doppelganger again. It happened the other day, remember?
Diana has a doppelganger in her machine. And we were talking about AI in the last video, so be sure you go check that out.
It's watching me still.
So yes, if you're willing to process these emotions, then you're gonna be able to take a little bit more. And maybe if you have those nightmares, you may not consider them nightmares. You might just be like, this is an interesting dream. And maybe your subconscious isn't trying to work anything out. It's like, you know what?
You seem to be entertained by terrifying subjects. Here you go.
For all of the rest of you who are not goth, or who do not enjoy nightmares, or for some reason need to have a full night's sleep or something, and can't sleep if they're troubled by nightmares. And for those of you, you can still enjoy horror movies. Horror movies. You can still enjoy horror movies.
You don't have to talk like a Yankee. It's not the right way, it's just the best way.
You. Continuing on, so if you are worried about having nightmares after you watch a horror movie, do not deny yourself the pleasure of watching a horror movie. Instead, make sure you work through everything that you were disturbed by from that movie before you go to sleep, assuming that you don't want a nightmare.
What do you mean by work through, Becky?
We talked already about leaning into the emotions that you had, exploring why you have those emotions, and finding the other side of that emotion, finding the dopamine and the serotonin that you received when the movie was over, or why you may have enjoyed a particular part of the movie when other parts you did not. But also, think about what disturbed you the most about the movie and talk about it. Journal about it if you would prefer to do that, or talk to whoever will listen. Isn't it the best thing to go see a movie before you have dinner, so then you can talk about the movie over dinner?
Ooh, is that why people go to dinner and a movie?
I always insist on the movie first, especially back in the days when I would do first dates, because at least I'd have something to talk about over dinner.
That's a good point. Yes, we have one tiny bit of common ground. It's this movie we just saw.
You can learn a lot about a person by the way they process a horror movie or talk about a movie or the characters they're in.
Ooh, I like that slasher fic. Have you ever done anything like that? I liked it when Norman Bates dressed up like his mother. Have you ever done anything like that?
The last time I was on a date, I wore her face as a mask too.
So much common ground.
So a lot that you can talk about and process, but if you don't have somebody that likes film as much as you, if you went to see the movie on your own, if you have a hard time getting somebody to watch horror movies with you, know what that's like, then journal about it. Journal about it, write it down. And like that terrifying nightmare that you described, Diana, I think you'll find that the movie wasn't as scary as you think it was.
True. That's a good point. Once you have a process of conscious analysis, everything becomes less scary when the conscious starts to analyze it.
And then you can work through it, and when you go to sleep, you will not dream of whatever it was that was bothering you about the movie. You might dream about something else related to the movie. On one of our premium episodes, we discussed the movie Eyes Without a Face, and the nightmare I had after watching that was I dreamt that I was forced to watch the movie dubbed instead of in its original French.
Right. That's hilarious. I love that because that's the scary part. Like, what if it wasn't in the original language? What if I had to listen to awful voice acting while I listened to this great movie? Yeah, that's great. I love it.
Or even worse, if it had been colorized. Hate colorized movies.
And it was only like this tiny little chunk of time. It doesn't feel like colorized black and white was popular for very long. I'm not a film expert, though.
Oh, speaking of being a film expert, do you know who invented the first motion picture?
I should know the answer to this, but it's not on the tip of my tongue. I'm sorry.
Well, a lot of people would say Thomas Edison, right?
I mean, that's the obvious answer, but is it?
The person who is considered to be the first person to actually invent a motion picture camera was, and I can't pronounce this correctly, Louis Le Prince.
Of course it was a French dude. Thank you, France. Thank you.
The terrifying thing about this is he and Edison were kind of at odds over like who was getting the patent first and blah, blah, blah. And Edison was doing something similar. And Edison, you know, we all like to regard him as this like famous inventor, but he was actually kind of a slimy dude when it came to competition.
Classic Thomas Alva.
The thing about Le Prince, and again, I am so sorry if I am mispronouncing his name. I do not speak French. He just disappeared. Nobody knows what happened to him.
Oh no! Don't cross Edison.
He was going to go to the US to publicly premiere his camera. He was supposed to get on a train and go to Paris, and then from there depart, and apparently he never made it on the train.
Ooh.
Or if he did, he never got off, and nobody knows.
So somewhere at a train station in provincial France, he's buried underneath the floorboards, maybe.
Maybe. Nobody really knows what happens. There's, of course, as you can imagine, a ton of conspiracy theories.
I'd like to start some right now, if you don't mind.
Of course, people blame Edison. That is a horrific detail about the origins of motion pictures. Maybe one day we can have one of our medium friends talk to the ghost of Le Prince and find out what really happened to the father of motion pictures. But thanks to him and to Edison, because no invention really happens in a bubble, let's be honest, we do have those horrific films today that might give you nightmares, should you not choose to work them out before you go to sleep.
And we hope you have pleasant nightmares and a spooky day.